Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Fuse News, the first of 2021, coming to you live on Facebook and on YouTube. Now, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine has begun distribution at GP vaccination sites across the UK. The aim is to offer jabs to most care home residents by the end of January, and by mid-February the target is to vaccinate 13 million people in the top 4 priority groups, which include
Hello and welcome to the latest Fuse News, coming to you live on Facebook and YouTube. Sorry for the technical glitch back then. There are snowstorms across the country which are affecting internet connections. The COVID AstraZeneca vaccine has begun distribution at GP vaccination sites across the UK. The aim is to offer jabs to most care home residents by the end of January. The target is to vaccinate 13 million people in the top 4 priority groups. This includes frontline healthcare workers, people aged 70 and over, and people of age. The Oxford vaccine is only 70% effective after one dose, compared to a 90% effectiveness rate for one dose of the Pfizer vaccine. AstraZeneca vaccine is that it can be stored at regular fridge temperature, making it far cheaper to transport and distribute, especially for patients who are. This good news comes despite an announcement of a third national lockdown earlier this week. This is expected to remain in place until the 15th. The patients in hospital with COVID in the UK is now above 30,000. In an address on the 4th of January, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the new coronavirus variant, and more transmissible, was spreading in a frustrating and alarming manner. In light of the level 5 alert across the country, the government has advised that students study for the following courses should return to campus and do face-to-face learning as planned. These include medicine and dentistry, subjects allied to medicine and veterinary science, education, social work, and courses which require professional statutory regulatory body assessments and or mandatory. Other students are advised to remain where they are until the national lockdown has been lifted. International students who are unable to cancel their original from this role, but must quarantine for 2 weeks upon arrival in the country. Any students who have returned to Manchester can access rapid testing on campus. Tests, visit the University of Manchester website. In light of the news of the third lockdown, Fuse News would like to remind students of the resources which are who is needing support or struggling with their mental or physical health. In November 2020, the University of Manchester launched a new 24-hour mental health, which offers support from trained counsellors for students struggling with emotional, physical, and mental health, as well as managing the likes of money issues and anxiety. Our mental health helpline and wellbeing app is available to students every day, 365 days a year, for anyone who is struggling with emotional or physical issues. Each student has a unique code for the app, which can be accessed via My Manchester. The service is confidential and aims to support students with any difficulties they may be facing. To this, the university provides one-to-one counselling for anyone who requires it, as well as workshops and resources for improving well-being. An advice service provides practical support for any students who may be facing financial problems, as well as for academic appeals and mental health and well-being issues. Information about these services can be found via the Students' Union website. The university also provides support for BAME mental health services, as well as BM services. The Disability Advisory and Support Service is also in place for students who have academic or exam issues. This can be 0161 275 7512, or to access further information, you can visit the My Manchester website. If someone who's struggling with any of the aforementioned issues, don't hesitate to utilise the support resources provided by the university. Many students have been expressing more consideration given to students during the lockdown. Pippa has more on why so many students are campaigning to get the no disadvantage policies.
Thank you for that, Anya. Yes, Gavin Williamson, the Secretary of State for Education of the UK, has announced that GCSE and A-level exams will be cancelled this year and replaced by teacher-assessed grades. University students across the country have reported feeling inconsidered and overlooked in the decision-making process, which they feel has neglected students who are struggling to produce work of the same quality as previous years. This has led to many students campaigning for a no disadvantage policy, much like the one which was in place last March when the first lockdown was introduced. A similar policy has been approved by Leeds Beckett University. Many students across the country have created petitions and sent open letters to faculty members to campaign for the return of the no disadvantage policy in the hopes of providing a safety net for students during this uncertain time. I spoke with third-year English Literature and Drama student Gabriel Clark, who created an open letter for McMahon after multiple discussions with coursemates surrounding the difficulties they are continuing to face with online learning during the pandemic. Here he highlights some of the reasons that he thinks students would benefit from having the no disadvantage policy reinstated. With the open letter, you're obviously campaigning for the no disadvantage policy to be reintroduced, which was in place last March. What were the key arguments? Would you be happy to just sort of the key points that are addressed in the letter?
Yeah, of course. So we were chatting in my English group chat about this, and we all sort of were wondering why there was nothing in place for us this year. We're now going into a third lockdown, and we're facing a lot of pressures anyway, external from uni. And we're now, I think a lot of people just feel sort of abandoned a bit by the uni, and like we've not been given sufficient amount of support. I know that's how I feel, but I don't want to speak for everyone. But yeah, I think the reason we started talking about writing the letter was just to try and say we'd really appreciate this no disadvantage policy being back. We've had to now go through the whole year of online learning, the whole year of people being away from their friends and some people away from their families as well. People going through bereavements, people studying at home, mature students studying with children at home as well. It's a completely different sort of level of pressure, I think, than the first lockdown when everyone was sort of having to get to grips with it. Whereas I think we're expected to now produce the same quality of work that we would be doing if we were doing in-person learning. But it's just, for me at least, I don't think it's possible when I'm sat. I've got a job as well, so I come home and I want to have time to relax as well, but I'm in my room, like it's now my learning space, and I think just that's quite difficult, having to bring everything into your house when you're used to learning in a library or being in a lecture hall.
What has the student response been like to that? Because I'm sure a lot of students are in a similar position. Have many people engaged with the open letter?
So as of now, let me have a look. We've had 1,500 signatures. I did not expect 1,540. Yeah.
What sort of issues are humanities students having at the moment?
I think for me as a drama student, it's the not being able to do practical subjects, but I sort of chose ideally I would have done different modules this year, but I chose my modules with the expectation that we were going to have to go online. But there's many of my classmates are having to now face second semester where all our practical modules were pushed back in the hope that we'd be back to normal. They're not able to do those modules in the way they expect.
The Students' Union Education Officer, Latita Alexandratos, has spoken out in support of a no detriment policy and announced that meetings with April McMahon, Vice President of Teaching, Learning and Support, are ongoing. The Education Officer said the following statement posted to the Students' Union Facebook. We informed the university's Teaching and Learning Group that in light of the recent government announcement of a new lockdown, mitigating circumstances alone won't be enough to protect our education this academic year, and that this decision needs to be taken as a matter of urgency to palliate the academic and mental pressure we're all feeling. We are continuing to push hard to make things as fair and clear for you. We have made some progress and we will continue to discuss the eventuality and logistics of such a policy while safeguarding all students' assessments and eventual degrees. Now Tom has the latest update on news in Fallowfield and the international news.
Yes, Pippa, thank you. And I apologise for earlier. I do think it's fitting for the times that everyone working from home can impact our internet connections. Hopefully you can hear me and see me now. A man has been arrested on suspicion of manufacturing an explosive device after suspicious items were discovered at a property in South Manchester. Homes were evacuated after bomb disposal officers were called to Winslow Road in Fallowfield last Friday night. The items were later deemed to be safe. Greater Manchester Police said. It's understood the incident is not being treated as terror-related. GMP says it's an isolated incident with no wider threat to the community. The 52-year-old suspect remains in custody for questioning. And now for the international news. One story has captured the attention of the world this week. The United States witnessed an attack on its Democratic pillar, the Capitol. On Wednesday, a mob of outgoing American President Trump's supporters stormed the US Capitol. The rioters attacked the heart of American democracy, vandalizing the building and assaulting police officers. Reports indicate that 4 people died during this attack on the Capitol. 1 woman was fatally shot by police, and 3 other people died of apparent medical emergencies. Alongside these fatalities, 1 police officer deployed with the US Capitol Police died of injuries, and at least 14 other DC Metropolitan Police officers were injured. According to the mayor, Metro Police made 80 arrests related to the unrest this week. The riots halted the transfer of power for hours and forced lawmakers to temporarily abandon the certification of Joe Biden's presidential victory. Following this, some lawmakers called for Mr. Trump to leave or even be removed from office before Mr. Biden's inauguration on January the 20th, accusing the outgoing president of fomenting the attack. Stunning images revealed the scale of a security breach, with protesters roaming the legislative chambers and ransacking lawmakers' offices, including that of Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker. Following the storming of the US Capitol by Trump supporters, 15 White House officials resigned and stepped down from their positions in Trump's administration. World leaders have also condemned the attack on the US Capitol, with many expressing their shock and outrage, and the list seems to continue as the days go on. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson tweeted and called the riots disgraceful. Other world leaders, like I said, the list continues, who condemned this storming are the ranged from the French President Emmanuel Macron, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, the Canadian PM, Justin Trudeau, the Swedish Prime Minister Stefan Löfven, and even the UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres and the NATO General Secretary Jens Stoltenberg. Many more have also condemned this act of violence in Washington. Now, Pippa has more on the homelessness scheme in Manchester.
Thanks for that, Tom. So on a positive note, amid so much uncertainty, up to 1,000 homeless people across Greater Manchester will be put up in hostels to try and stop more people getting coronavirus. A £5 million funding plan announced by Regional Mayor Andy Burnham will help those most at risk of developing and spreading the disease, rough sleepers and people in shared accommodation. Currently, 625 rooms have already been allocated in hotels across the city region, with the combined authority hoping to secure a further 375 by this Friday. Food, sanitary products and dental supplies will also be provided, with mobile phones allowing those staying to contact support workers and access extra emotional support. We have identified 720 people in shared accommodation and 280 people sleeping rough on the streets who will need our support, he said. It is absolutely crucial from a humanitarian point of view that urgent action was taken to put in place proper support for them. The plan, agreed between Mr. Burnham and the 10 council leaders in Greater Manchester, will use funding that has been set aside for other uses. That's all from us this week from Fuse News at the University of Manchester. We hope you are all keeping safe and well. Tune in next Friday for our weekly news update.